Hey, and welcome to this episode of Connections, Coffee, and Confidence. I'm Janice, and today I want to talk about a story that's been making the rounds this past week. It's all about Lush, the UK-based bath and body company that's focused on fresh and ethically sourced and lots of other virtuous adjective products. I don't mean to sound flippant, I'm just not here to do their marketing. They're in the news recently because they made a rather surprising announcement and caused quite a flap with a lot of people in a number of different areas. And look, I know you didn't ask for my opinion, but that's what's coming up. Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections, Coffee, Confidence podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode. In case you missed it, Lush has announced that they've closed their Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and TikTok channels until those platforms can provide a safer environment for their users. They recognize the need to be, in a manner of speaking, social in some aspect, so they're remaining on Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But they're not asking you to like or follow or subscribe or anything. They invite you to just pop in as you like. The flutter I mentioned is split between everyone wondering how Lush will survive and the newish entrepreneurs wondering how they themselves will survive if this is the new trend. Well, gather around, my friends. This has been the opening I didn't realize I needed to have a wee vent. Now let me take you back to the beginning days of public relations. Way back to Edward Bernays, who's actually Freud's nephew. But, more germane to this, is that he's credited with being the father of modern PR. He's fascinating as a person and as a professional. He's also known as the creator of propaganda and spin. But deep down, he laid some solid foundations for the practice today. He stated that public relations was about three things: informing people, persuading people, and integrating with people. Simple, eh? Those three principles, they stand true to this day. They're what I talk about in some way, shape, or form every week on this podcast. And look, maybe inform, persuade, and integrate would have been a better name, but I'm about 78 episodes too late. Anyway, nowhere in there did he say how to do this. And considering this was shortly after the turn of the last century, there was obviously no mention of social media as a necessity. Mentioning the socials brings us back to the present day, and I've linked Lush's official statement in the show notes if you want to read it in its entirety yourself. It's a wonderful statement, as one might expect from a large company with probably an in-house PR team and agency assisting. But generally, it acknowledges their values as a company, it acknowledges that social media isn't healthy and doesn't conform to their values, and that they want to engage with their customers in a safe and healthy fashion, not force them into a dark alley, to paraphrase a quote from their co-founder. It also acknowledges that they tried this once before, shortly before the pandemic hit, and I love the fact that they straight up admit to FOMO, or fear of missing out, as everyone flooded to social channels to keep in touch with their audiences. Here's the thing with Lush and this announcement that I want to draw your attention to, kind of like a mini case study. Look, they're established. They are profitable. They spent years building brand awareness and establishing a reputation and a loyal customer base. Yes, it is risky for them to stop social media activity, but there's risk in every choice a business makes. This is a calculated risk, though, and a killer PR move in so many ways. Starting with it visibly aligns with their values. And in case you miss that, they just tell you. And that's cool, because sometimes you have to spell out things like that for people in the back. It's an example of your actions mirroring your words to make yours a trusted brand, to bolster your reputation. It caused a lot of media coverage, particularly with media that wouldn't normally cover a company like Lush. So they've gained brand exposure to a huge new audience. Classic PR goal. And that exposure, it's invaluable in some respects. It caused a massive spike in people searching for their brand, probably buying their products as a result. And, interesting how the announcement was beautifully timed to gather momentum with the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I studied Bernays for too long and I see something underlying the decision. And maybe, probably, that was part of the calculated business move. I stipulate these people are ethical, not that they're stupid. The timing was a masterpiece. But it also caused a very large conversation around what someone has to do to grow a business and stay in business. How one can keep their ethics and morals while still making money. People are talking about Lush as part of their daily conversation. People who would never have talked about them are talking about them often and with lots of different people, like I'm doing now, like I've done in my Facebook group and elsewhere this past week. Talking about Lush and their brave or stupid or ridiculous move, however it's viewed, it's being viewed and talked about. And that's fantastic as a brand. This is a conversation that's been brewing for a while, bubbling up a little bit more with the whistleblowing of Facebook, and the time is very ripe for something like this to bring the conversation to the mainstream. Not only was it brilliant timing in terms of exposure momentum for the major pre-Christmas sales, but also what makes it so fantastic is that it's timely. There is little that a journalist loves more than having a new take on a trending topic, and man, did they deliver. This mini case study is an excellent example of public relations, with all of the newsworthy elements, all of the societal elements. It's been a really good, timely, real-life example of things that I have been talking about for the last year or so. That all goes deeper than having a social media presence or a killer email list. Establishing and building, maintaining your reputation, and having a strategy in place to do so. Because this was not an off-the-cuff decision. No way. Lush has a strategy in place to stay in touch with their customers. Their CEO has an email address set up to engage with people. They're planning on using their Reddit page to continue actual conversations with people. They'll use Twitter and YouTube to get information out about products and whatever news they have. They have a plan to continue to inform, persuade, and integrate with people. And put that on top of their years of work to establish themselves, the professionals and the teams that they have in place, and frankly, I feel like Lush is going to do just fine in the long term. And I bet they do too, or else this would be a fairly risky move. When it comes to you, though, you may be thinking how that's all very well and good for them, but how are you supposed to inform, persuade, and integrate if you don't at least use Facebook and Instagram? You might not have been in business for the last 10 years either, which is a significant time to build a reputation. You don't have their budget, you don't have their access to their teams. You have you, maybe a VA and someone else. You have a list of things to do as long as your arm, and you have other responsibilities too. But you also have me, and this podcast, and my 10 places to get publicity, even with zero budget, which is a free download that you can get by going to janisfogarty.com. Because I really believe that you don't need to have a huge budget and a brilliant team behind you to get good public relations. And I also believe you don't need to rely on social media to build your list, establish a reputation, sell your thing. There certainly are ideas on my free download that involve social media, like arranging a swap of an Instagram account for a day, where you find someone with a mutually beneficial audience and you take over each other's accounts for a day or a week or whatever, just to get that exposure and introduce yourself to new people. Because honestly, I think the socials are here to stay. I don't know what they're going to look like or how we're going to interact with them in the future, but I know they'll continue to play a large part in the world. But they're not everything. And so I also have ideas like write an article for a publication that suits your expertise, your business, and your audience. This is an example of things that people have done for over 100 years in one shape or another. Something that's worked for businesses of all shapes, sizes, and budgets. Because submitting an article should really be free. And if your stars align, will actually bring you an income. But it's up to you to do the work, unless you want to hire me, which I am totally cool with. And I'm also thinking about having a bootcamp style workshop where we work through how to pitch yourself. But the principle, that remains the same. You gotta do the work yourself. So think about what made Lush's announcement to stay true to their values so bloody amazing. Because remember, that's it. That's all they did when you look at their announcement on face value. But as to the results, they created conversation. They bucked the norm. They got in front of millions of people who have either never heard of their brand or never gave it a second thought before, let alone discussed it with others. They timed their announcement to draw maximum exposure to them at a time when it was going to boost their earnings the most. They also timed it to join a burgeoning conversation in the wider world. And you know what? I don't know if you noticed this, but they did this for free. I mean, yeah, it cost them to pay their PR people and their web people to post their announcement, but those are regular business costs. They didn't have to take out a full-page ad in the major newspapers or on the TV, magazines from every country that they do business in. They didn't have to pay journalists or pundits or even me to talk about them. We're all doing that for free. Exposure to millions of potential new customers for free. By reading the room, by aligning their ethics and actions, by talking about them. You can do any of this. Listen to episode 61, Simple Ways to Show Good Corporate Citizenship, if you want to hear more about aligning your ethics and your actions or words. And as you listen, think about the potential and the probable benefits Lush is getting from doing just that. Listen to episode 63, But What Do I Talk About? If you want more information and a brainstorming session prompt on how you can build your reputation. And let's be honest, if you have a fish through my past episodes, you'll find more that can help you learn about how you can use public relations in your business to help you reach your goals and create a reputation that bolsters you when you need it most. You might not have a worldwide conversation starter, but I know you have something of value to contribute. I know it. You need to know it and put it into action. Okay. Look, this makes me want to spin off into an entirely new topic about how bloody brilliant you are, and I know you have a contribution to make, but that is for another day. There's already lots to think about from this announcement from Lush. I want to know what you think about it. Are you all aflutter because you don't know how to operate without Facebook and Instagram? Are you dismissive, like this was a total PR stunt? Does it make you think about your own responsibilities to your customers or your clients? Or how brands you like are treating you as their customer? Are you happier not thinking about any of it? I know that my mind is going to be churning this around for a while yet. And I'm going to talk about it again. But until then, my friend, have a fan-freaking-tastic rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening this week. I invite you to sign up for my email list or join me in the Connections Coffee and Confidence community on Facebook. Those are the people who get first dibs on any classes or products I create, and they benefit from the extras I can't get into in a podcast format. I also lovingly request that if you've enjoyed this podcast, you leave a review on Apple. When I see a new review, I get so excited I almost spill my cappuccino froth. Almost. And if you're a woman entrepreneur who's ready to get serious about using the power of communications to grow your business, send me an email at janice@janicefogarty.com. All my details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening today, and I'll chat with you again next week.